In order to go through this process, it is very important to consciously choose to go through it. Otherwise, your psyche will refuse to do any of the work related and will fight you from within to keep the status quo. So, before you begin this process, make sure that you have willingly chosen to go through it. Last time, we discussed a construct of the psyche called the ego. The ego is an external construct of the mind that deals with the external world. And the ego is mainly used by the psyche for your own survival, to keep you safe, psychologically and physically. The ego has been extensively studied by Freud and Freudians in ego psychology. Even though I'm not a Freudian, I do suggest looking that up. I will link you to some information. They have done very good work concerning explaining the ego and the strategies it uses to help the psyche survive. In ego psychology, they specifically call these strategies defense mechanisms. An example of a defense mechanism is denial. Denial is not a form of lying, consciously lying. It's rather a form of inner self-deception, where the mind even refuses to think that they are capable of doing a certain act. For example, a person may smash things, get angry, hit the wall, and even say abusive things to a spouse. But when confronted with that behavior, they would deny it, not because they actually are lying to the other person, but they actually have no idea that they do these things. The ego represses these behaviors as if they did not exist, and this is a form of denial. Now, I'm not going to go through all the defense mechanisms, but the important one I want to talk about is repression. Repression is the most effective defense mechanism the ego uses to completely remove the certain hurtful memories from the conscious mind. But these memories, as we talked about, go to the subconscious mind, still affecting the person. Now, shadows are repressed memories or traits that the individual needs to bring back to the conscious mind. And as we said in the first audio video, we need to find the specific memory that triggered the program to begin with. And the ego will fight that process. It does not want you to remember it, because to it means if you remember this memory, then you're not able to psychologically survive. But even if that was true when, for example, you were a child and you were, for example, bullied very badly, and it did that to help you survive back then, it is not beneficial anymore. For example, when a person is a child, they faced a very angry parent, and they used to go hide in a room. When they grew up, this person still applies this strategy, and this leads to conflict with other people. For example, they may be talking to another person. If the other person even raises their voice, they will get up and go and lock themselves in a room. As an adult, is not beneficial anymore. It may have helped this person as a child, but it needs to be changed from the subconscious. Another block is rejection and refusal to deal with this. So acceptance of what has happened and what is happening is very important, or else you will continue to struggle within yourself. Because whenever you reject something, you generate negative emotions about it. I don't want to do this. This is hurting me. I feel anxious. I feel angry. I don't want to go through this. But when you say to yourself that I accept this situation, yes, it was bad. It was horrible. I was not able to deal with it back then, but now I am able to deal with it. I want to deal with it. And it may not have been okay to have happened, but I accept that it has happened, or I accept that it is happening now. And I want to do something about it. I want to address this issue. Remind yourself with affirmations whenever you feel that you're getting a negative emotion. That it's going to be okay, that you are in a safe place, that you are consciously choosing to do this to become a more healthy and functional person, where you don't just react to the past or automatic thoughts and feelings. Rather, you want to choose how to respond consciously as a healthy person. And the ego tends to live in the past. It lives in the realm of habits. So it thinks that whatever you are going to face is going to be a repetition of the past. That is not necessarily true. In another video, I will address when that happens. But now, try to keep yourself in the present. There's a book by Eckhart Tolle that's called The Power of Now, which I found very helpful to keep yourself in the present. Some people use meditations or forms of yoga to keep themselves in the present. But to keep yourself in the present, whenever you're actually doing shadow work, is to use a form of affirmation that you are in the present. Look around you and keep yourself centered there, even though you are trying to remember the past or reflecting on it in order to break that emotional link to it. The last issue I want to deal with is fear. Fear is generated by the ego to help you also survive. Whenever a bad experience happens, the fear may not be generated immediately. It may be repeated several times, or even once may be enough, depending on the experience, to cause you to form a fear of it. And this fear may be rational or irrational, that's not our concern. Any type of fear it is, fear of abandonment, fear of being loved, fear of social situations, fear of any type of animal, fear of being alone or being rejected. These are all fears that are based on patterns or habits that the ego has followed, and it gives you that trigger, which is the fear, in order to protect you. That the ego is not something negative. It has its own place, and we need to only give it that place. Remember, this is your own mind. Your mind does not control you. You are the owner of the mind. And this is what we are trying to achieve, that you respond to life the way you want to respond, and not have yourself being affected and react to life as if you have no choice or no say in anything you do. That is not true. Another thing I wanted to point out is the difference between needs and wants or desires. Needs come from the ego also. And there's Abraham Maslow, with his theory hierarchy of needs, specifies these needs, like the needs to be loved, the need for survival. These are some of the needs. There are several ones. I will link to also down below. So, these needs are a product of the ego in order to survive. When you want something or desire something, that is another issue. This is what you consciously choose to do, not because you have to do it, not because you need to do it or else something you don't like happens. Rather, you want to do it because it makes you feel happy. This is where there's a difference between avoiding what we do not want, which is a need, and then desiring something we do want because it makes us feel happy. There's a big difference between the two. And whenever you do a certain act or a certain activity, ask yourself, am I doing a need? For example, I need money, so I go and work in a job I do not like, but I need the money, so I do the job. This is a need of the ego. This is not a want. A person who does a job, that he wants or she wants, goes, enjoys the job, does it for its own sake. And money is a benefit out of that job. It's not, I do the job to get the money. The money is not the goal, is not the need. No, the aim is to feel happy and to feel satisfied in the job because you chose to do it. Another example of fear versus wants is a person who has a fear of being alone because maybe they were left alone very much as a child. And this person, for example, goes into relationships in order not to feel alone. The ego gives the idea that yes, you need to be with someone or else you feel alone. So this person does not go in relationships because they want to be in that relationship. And sometimes even when they are in a relationship, they still feel alone and they don't understand, why am I still feeling alone? Because being alone is generated from the inside. It's not really being with someone or not. And many people don't really understand that when a spouse tells them, I feel alone, I feel isolated. Well, I'm with you all the time. How can you possibly feel isolated? It has nothing to do with being in the presence of another person. It has to do internally with an ego need that is not satisfied. So this person, for example, may go from one person to the next, from one relationship to the next, aiming to stop feeling this need. But they will find out it is not satisfied. And that's a very big difference between someone who goes into a relationship who wants to be with this other person because they enjoy being with this other person and want to live with them, want to spend time with them. Another aspect of the ego is that it thinks in dual terms. Things are either this or that, black or white, religion or science. There's no gray areas for the ego because it sees things in only one way. And the right brain is what sees things in a more as a whole, holistically, and it can connect to different ideas together, while the ego only chooses one way and even convinces us that we need to be in one way. Like we are either sociable or not sociable. Sometimes you can be both at the same time. Sometimes you feel like you want to go and be alone, and sometimes you want to be with others. But no, to the ego, either this or that. And if you do something which it sees as something opposite of what you usually do, then it sounds like I'm unarmed. Like, why are you doing something different? It does not like change. And this is why in the process of awareness, it might cause you to feel anxious or to feel a bit upset that you are changing things. Another helpful exercise is to use a construct of the psyche I like to call the observer. The observer is like an objective third person that sees things as they are without any emotional links. It's like watching without the interacting with the memory or interacting with the event that is happening. To use the observer, try to pull yourself back from the emotions or from the memory and look at it as if you're watching a movie. So what is happening here? So this happened to me a long time ago, and someone said something to me, I reacted that certain way, and this happened. And this construct is also helpful when you are really starting to feel negative emotions by remembering the memory. And but it's very important to remember that you use this observer along not just to escape the feeling of fear, but rather you're using it in order to see things as they are. And there's a big difference between the two. We are not aiming to find another strategy for the ego to hide from the negative emotions. We only want to not, for our perspective, to be as clear as possible without having to react to that certain memory or event that is happening.